Good afternoon and welcome, welcome, welcome. The Human Rights Institute and the Institute for the Study of Sports Society and Social Change welcomes you to San Jose State's first annual Research Colloquium for Human Rights and Social Change. The purpose of this conference is to engage scholars, students, and community organizations in conversations on research, reporting, advocacy, relating to human rights and social change. The event will include a keynote speaker and concurrent thematic student-led discussion groups and an awards presentation for students, faculty, and community partners. The theme for this year's symposium is Equity in the Age of COVID-19. Hello again, my name is Dr. Akilah Carter-Francique, and I'm the Executive Director for the Institute for the Study of Sports, Society, and Social Change here at San Jose State University. We are glad you can join us, and we're excited to celebrate and recognize our students today. I would like to start off by acknowledging the land that we are on. The San Jose State University community recognizes that the present-day Muwekma Ohlone tribe, with an enrolled Bureau of Indian Affairs documented membership of over 550, is comprised of all of the known surviving American Indian lineages, Aboriginal to the San Francisco Bay region, who trace their ancestry through the Mission, Santa Clara, San Jose, and Dolores during the advent of the Hispano-European Empire into Alta California, and who are the successors and living members of the sovereign, historic, previously federally recognized Verona Band of Alameda County. Furthermore, the San Jose State University community recognizes that the university is established within the Thiamin Ohlone speaking tribal ethno-historic territory, which based upon the unratified federal treaties of 1851 to 1852, includes the unceded ancestral lands of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. Some of the enrolled Muwekma lineages are descended from the direct ancestors from the Thiamin Ohlone tribal territory whose ancestors had affiliation with Mission Santa Clara. The San Jose State University community also recognizes the importance of this land to the indigenous Muwekma Ohlone people of this region, and consistent with our principles of community and diversity, strives to be good stewards on behalf of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe whose land we occupy. So today's event is a collaboration and an opportunity to bring together a shared purpose and efforts that promote social change and human rights. Therefore, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my colleague and co-host and invite the Executive Director of the Human Rights Institute, Dr. William Armelle, to join us on camera as he shares a little bit about this institute, our institutes, and this event.
So thank you very much, Akilah. It's a real pleasure to be here with everyone, and it's an absolute pleasure to join my colleague and also director, Akilah, this evening or today, this afternoon. And on behalf of on behalf of the amazing students, faculty, and staff of the Human Rights Institute, I'd like to welcome you all today. The SJSU HRI is dedicated to informing policy and practice according to the highest human rights legal standards and best practices. Please visit our website in the chat to learn more about our many projects, programs, and opportunities. Please also join us in appreciating some of our students' research and reporting today, as this is one major driver of our work.
So again, even to your point, I know you were saying, hey, morning, good afternoon, but depending on where you are in the world today, it could be morning, it could be afternoon, it could be evening. But again, we welcome you all. Akilah Carter-Francique, the Executive Director for the Institute for the Study of Sports, Society, and Social Change. And with our institute, the institute really is one that carries the legacy of equity and social justice and understanding how it is a part of SJSU's DNA. As our nation confronts and explores deeply complex social issues, it is critical that we continue to challenge the boundaries of sport and activism. At the Institute, we acknowledge that sport offers the occasion to pose big questions, not just of athletes, but of ourselves, and provide enlightened perspectives. That said, the Institute for the Study of Sports, Society, and Social Change is dedicated to research, analysis, and education at the intersection of sport and society. So like my colleague, Dr. Armelle, we invite you to visit our website and join the conversation. We just have a few housekeeping rules as we sort of move through today's colloquium and conversations that we have. So with that said, we wanted to remind everyone that we are recording today's event. So we will be sharing this recording and presentation via an email in the next couple of days. We'll provide you with a link such that you can come back, check us out, see us, or spread the word and share with others. We also want to welcome during this platform an opportunity to ask questions, to chat with others, and to pose some, ideas and thoughts in our Q&A during our Q&A session. So we invite you to submit any questions using the webinar Q+A button on your toolbar, and you see in this great image here at any time. And feel free to use the chat button on your toolbar to share other information and food for thought. Please know that this is a shared space and a space of thought and learning. Therefore, we ask you to keep your comments appropriate, or we may have to remove you from the space. And lastly, one key important part of this program is an opportunity to feature our students. And this will occur in our breakout sessions. So after our keynote conversations and some message from all of us here at our respective institutes, you'll be able to join one of the 3 breakout sessions to watch our students' pre-recorded presentations. And so you should have received an attendee guide in your email with all the links for those particular breakout sessions. We will also put that information in the chat as we move through our program today, so don't worry if you can't find it. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Armelle to introduce our first speakers.
Thank you, Dr. Carter-Francik. It is my pleasure to introduce Jerry Threet and Demetra Smith, current and former chairs of the Sonoma County Human Rights Commission. The Commission's purpose is to promote human rights through education, cooperation, and cultural diversity for Sonoma County. Demetra Smith is the former chair and program manager for the Junior Commission from 2012 to 2020. She authored the county's first report on racial discrimination in schools, human violations through overlapping police protests. She's the co-founder of Title VI Civil Rights Protections and Mutual Aid for Essential Workers. Jerry Threet is the current chair of the commission, and while his focus is on police accountability, tenant protections, and employment for the county, he also works part-time in Richmond, California on the Police Review Commission to investigate police misconduct, evaluations, and negotiations. I'd like to turn it over to Demetra and Jerry just to say a few words about their work with the Sonoma County Human Rights Commission.
Thank you so much, Dr. Armelle, and thank you to the San Jose State University Human Rights Institute for having us today. It's been my great pleasure to serve on the Commission on Human Rights and recently with Jerry during the last year and a half or so. I moved to Sonoma County in 2001 from San Francisco and instantly was greeted by severe culture shock. The level of racism here was really just beyond. And I feel like Sonoma County has been pretty isolated from the rest of the Bay Area. So it's really great to be able to start forging some relationships with our neighbors. When I joined the commission, it was thought of as kind of a pet project for diversity and something for the Board of Supervisors to kind of check boxes off of. And so it was thought there was a perception in the community that the commission didn't really stand up for human rights in the community. And so I made it my personal commitment to change that. So I began engaging in some deep work. For example, when there was a serious racial discrimination case, I actually parlayed that into a series of monthly meetings and then a study of racial discrimination and report and recommendations. That was ignored by all the supervisors and the board and the superintendent. So I was really operating in an environment where I was really not being given a platform or really listened to by the press or the elected officials. But as that is, familiar to me from my experience as a Black and Indigenous woman, I just kept doing the work and leaving the receipts. So that kind of continued. And I feel like there's been some incredible movement in the county towards the commission actually really doing very important and necessary work for the public. And that really came to a head and really became codified this last year with the, the advent of COVID-19 and the impact of the Black Lives Matter protests. We have serious issues with white supremacy and racial profiling in law enforcement here. And a lot of that was on display during the protests. And so the Commission on Human Rights gathered reports and incidents and compiled that into a comprehensive 40-page report that has really never been done before in the county. And so that to me was just a huge honor to be able to work on that. My only regret is not being able to get every single account because there was a lot happening. But I'm really proud of that work. I'm also want to, underscore the importance of, like I said, the inter-county relationship building. I met Dr. Armelle and Dr. Kinney in 2016 at a CARO conference, the biennial conference at San Jose State University. And that was the first time that I had any real connection with folks outside of Sonoma County in which I was able to collaborate with on human rights work. So again, it's nice to not be so isolated anymore. And I'll turn it over to Jerry. But one of the things that we did, the two things that we did that I'm most proud of this last year, besides the report, was utilizing our budget to get PPE to all the folks who were not receiving it, the most impacted frontline communities in our county. And also we created the first, I think it's definitely the first one in Sonoma County and maybe in the state. It's a human rights incident reporting website in 18 languages called the Sonoma County Human Rights Visibility Project. So I'm really happy about that because it's something that can be rolled out to the community to actually give an avenue for people to report human rights violations to. So I feel like over the past 10 years and certainly moving forward, the commission has really grown and become really a force in the community. And I'm honored to have been a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Demetra. And I just want to say Demetra has been one of my heroes in Sonoma County. So it was a real pleasure and privilege to join her on the commission after I retired from being the director of the Civilian Oversight Office for the sheriff. And that was my first job in the county. And I did that from 2016 to 2019. And, I did a lot of good work in that office, but I'd say the primary thing I took away from that effort was the frustration trying to actually do the work that I was hired to do with elected officials and other appointed officials in the county working behind the scenes to try to stop that work from happening. So coming from that frustration and walking into a commission that had been empowered by Demetra's leadership to actually take on these issues and be public and vocal about them was really refreshing. And some of the things I want to highlight, I certainly second everything Demetra said about the work that we did together in 2020. But one of the things she didn't mention that I do want to highlight is that there was we have a disproportionate focus of police violence and enforcement on our BIPOC community, and particularly Black people in our county. And that's historically been the case with the sheriff's office. And there was a young man who lived in Grayton, a Black young man who lived in Grayton, whose family had been historically targeted by the sheriff's office. And in February of 2020, had a dog set on him and his leg mauled. And I'm not going to describe all of it, but it was a very significant wound and required that he go in the hospital for many weeks and have rehab. And then his family was targeted after that, and they tried to, at the sheriff's instigation, CPS tried to take away his daughter. So the trauma of that, we got immediately involved with that. Demetra and I tried to pull together a team that provided counseling for the family. We worked behind the scenes to keep his daughter from being taken by CPS, and that was really good work. That was really meaningful for me, and it was really taught me that, if there's anybody in the county I can trust, is Demetra Smith. And that was, very rewarding work. And then, since Demetra has left the commission, I've continued on. And some of the work that we're doing right now that I'm also proud of is that we are pushing We did push for the oversight office for the sheriff to be strengthened. That measure got on the ballot and it was successful. We got a 2/3 vote of the electorate to support that strengthening of the office and make it effective. And we continue on the commission to push for every law enforcement agency in the county to have civilian oversight so that it's not just them doing what they want in isolation and secrecy. And then one of my personal projects that has the support of the commission is to push every law enforcement leader in the county to investigate their employees to ensure that none of those employees are associated or have affiliations with hate groups or white supremacist groups. So that's ongoing work that I'm proud of and that I think is important. So thanks for the opportunity to talk about that.
And before our amazing guests so far this afternoon run off, I'd like to actually surprise them with a quick announcement. So it's my absolute pleasure to offer our first annual Community Partner Award in Human Rights and Social Change to chairs Demetra Smith and Jerry Threet and the Sonoma County Human Rights Commission. Yay! This award is meant to recognize organizations of community members that are doing bold, courageous, relevant, impactful work to define and realize human rights through meaningful social change. Under their leadership, the Sonoma County HRC did critical human rights reporting on racist police violence and partnered with us in Assemblymember Collar's office to create the CLEAR Act that's actually in legislation right now. We will be going to the Appropriations Committee on the 20th as our next step. If you follow us at SJSU Human Rights on Twitter, I'll throw that in the chat. You can keep up with all things CLEAR Act and all things partnership with Sonoma County Human Rights Commission. And this is the first policy in the nation actually to address the infiltration of law enforcement by right-wing extremist organizations. So we are very proud of this work with our partners. And I can't think of people who are more deserving of our first annual award of this sort, and we'll be giving out these awards each year at this colloquium from this point forward. So please join me again in showing some love for our guests and our first award recipients.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's so awesome.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Miranda Worthen, who will introduce our keynote speaker for today.
Thanks, Bill, and thank you, Demetra and Jerry, for that really wonderful discussion about the work that you're doing in the Sonoma County Human Rights Commission and the opportunity for partnership with the Human Rights Institute. My name is Miranda Worthen, and I am the research coordinator for Human Rights Institute, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Public Health and Recreation at San Jose State. And it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Marcus Durr. Marcus is a retired Navy veteran and a 2019 San Jose State University graduate. I had the immense pleasure of working with Marcus when he was a public health student. And I'm so excited that he will be speaking today with us because I think he really understands and experienced how transformative and impactful doing research while a student could be. And so there's no more better person to talk about research and our research colloquium than someone who has himself conducted research and really learned a huge amount through that experience. Marcus currently works as a community outreach and health education specialist for the County of Santa Clara Public Health Department. Marcus works in the infectious disease department in the HIV and STI prevention and control branch as part of the needle exchange program. And in addition, he serves as commissioner and board member of the Santa Clara County HIV Commission. With over 20 years of HIV prevention and education experience, he remains steadfast in his efforts to eliminate the stigma, misperceptions, and discrimination that many people living with HIV continue to experience today. And after Marcus's talk, we will be able to have a short Q&A with him. So please go ahead and use the Q&A box on the Zoom usually at the bottom, that will allow you to ask questions that you might have about Mr. Durr's work. So without further ado, welcome, Marcus.
Thank you, Dr. Worthen, for that wonderful introduction. Allow me to welcome you all to the very first joint Colloquium on Human Rights and Social Change. As was said, my name is Marcus Durham, and I want to thank San Jose State University Human Rights Institute and the Institute for Study of Sport, Society, and Social Change for the invitation and honor to speak with you today. And as you heard, this year's theme is the equity in the age of COVID-19. You heard most of my background. I am a retired United States sailor, 20 years in the Navy. I worked with HIV and sexual health with many of the sailors and Marines for almost 20 years. I got my degree in 2019 at San Jose State, Go Spartans. And as you heard, I currently work in Santa Clara County Public Health Department. So San Jose State University has a rich history and a legacy in human rights and social change. You don't have to search far for examples or reminders of the significant role San Jose State University has had on social justice engagement and activism. Scattered around campus are commemorations and tributes reminding us of such endeavors, from the statue of fellow Spartans Tommy Smith and John Carlos with their raised black gloved fists in protest of racial discrimination and inequality. And during the same time period, San Jose State was instrumental in the creation of the Olympic Project for Human Rights, which called upon Black athletes to boycott the 1968 Olympics, in which Tommy and John won medals in. There's also the Cesar Chavez Archway near the Student Union, portraying the toils and challenges of farm workers and paying honor to the historical United Farm Workers of America movement that Cesar Chavez started, to the founding of Earth Day by fellow Spartan Gaylord Nelson, to the annual sleep out to raise awareness of homelessness that takes place today on campus. These are just a few of the many, many examples of how SJSU has been at the forefront of the fight for social justice for over 100 years. An SJSU professor, Professor Jacobs, once said, "To gain an understanding of where social engagement and activism needs to go, we need to fully appreciate where it's been. And SJSU's social justice history facilitates that process. And an important part of that process involves one of the most significant tools we have available to us today, and that's research. After all, at its basic definition, the overall goal of the research process is to produce new knowledge. Now, I could go on how research helps students develop critical reasoning and how it fosters problem solving and analytical skills. And I could tell you that research is where you engage in practical application of all the theories that you learn. I could share how it gives you a better understanding of the research methods and how it provides you with a deeper grasp of the field. And I could even tell you how you will acquire an increased level of confidence working with teams and on your own. And all these things are true and very important. And equally important, it helps define your academic, personal, and career interests while expanding your knowledge. And in essence, it's a short-term, relatively risk-free way to explore whether a research career or a particular field resonates with you. But for me, it goes deeper than that. For me, it's an extraordinary opportunity to honor humanity. Research creates a space for growth, allowing us to challenge biases and misperceptions while making human connections that would otherwise have been forsaken. The importance of these relationships in our own personal development cannot be understated. Building community with peers, faculty, and organizations on and off campus, developing one-on-one bonds and relationships, these partnerships and collaborations are vital and invaluable. You obtain a sense of purpose. You can discover as opposed to being told. You develop your agency, influence, self-efficacy, and voice. Helping others reinforces our sense of relatedness to others. It embraces and celebrates our humanity. Research allows you to identify barriers and challenges. When more times than not, these barriers have impacted both social justice and human rights, which in turn creates inequity amongst groups within society. Research allows you to gather tangible and demonstrable data. The information that researchers provide is responsible for influencing public policies to address social justice issues, human rights, and the ugliness of man's inhumanity towards man. So, what social justice, what is it? Oxford Dictionary defines it as justice in terms of the distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privileges within a society. The goal of social justice is the full and equal participation of all groups in a society that is mutually shaped to meet their needs. And today, social justice has shifted towards a stronger emphasis on human rights and improving the lives of disadvantaged and marginalized groups that have historically faced discrimination in society. Many of these groups have been discriminated against based on factors such as sex, age, wealth, ethnicity, heritage, social status, religion, and more. To achieve social justice, there are 4 interrelated principles that are vital, and that's equity, access, participation, and human rights. To serve the people, a healthy society must offer services and resources. These include education, healthcare, shelter, food, and many more. They must have access. For equity, equity is different than equality. If social justice were only concerned with equality, it wouldn't lead to a just society. Equity considers the differences between people, and it adjusts the benefits to those people that need the most help. While unequal in its strictest definition, equity leads to a society with reduced inequalities. The 4th principle of social justice is participation. Society must allow everyone to voice their concerns and take part in making decisions. If something affects a person's life, a group in society, then that person or group needs to be a part of that process. And human rights. To me, human rights and social justice are 2 sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. For a society to be just, it must ensure the protection of everyone's rights, no matter. Human rights could quite possibly be the most commanding principle for social justice. They are acknowledged internationally and are highlighted and underscored in many treaties around the world. These principles have had a deeper impact on me. The advocacy I strive to partake in was molded by my upbringing. Early in life, I was exposed to the concept of others. As a boy, I learned what it felt like to be marginalized and discriminated against. Growing up in a small, rural, and very conservative Western Pennsylvania town, as a young gay male, I saw firsthand how easily one can fall into the category of the others. And it is these others that have historically suffered the most from social injustices. In the 80s, as a teenager, I saw how HIV and AIDS not only devastated the community I belonged to, but it further created prejudice and discrimination against the LGBTQ community. And because it was considered a gay disease, there was very little interest from the government and the medical community to address the issues as thousands and thousands of gay males died. There was no such thing as social justice. There was no access, participation, no equity, and human rights were not even considered. These realities had a profound effect on me. They guided me to becoming a champion for others. Becoming a champion required more than a simple desire to help. I wanted to identify the reasons, the constructs, and the barriers that consistently led to the disenfranchising of marginalized groups. I wanted to treat more than the symptoms. I wanted to eradicate that which created these symptoms, the root cause. Well, how do you do that? Research, the collection and synthesizing of information. Research allows you to explore, experiment, learn, and achieve. I've been fortunate to see these principles of social justice enacted every day in the line of work that I do. As mentioned, I work in the Needle Exchange Program for Santa Clara County, and I'm a commissioner on the HIV Commission. So we work, these positions are centered around addressing the systemic and structural factors that cause or contribute to social problems, specifically with people who inject drugs or people living with HIV or AIDS. In the Needle Exchange Program, for those that don't know what the program is on, we exchange new needles for used needles. We provide STD, HIV, and Hep C testing. We do referrals for mental health, detox, substance abuse. We provide opioid overdose prevention by providing Narcan kits and training. We do harm reduction, and everything we do in public health we try to follow the harm reduction model. We don't try and tell folks what to do, but we meet them where they're at and go from there. We provide kits for available safer smoking, safer sex, hygiene, fentanyl test strips. And as a member of the HIV Commission, it's our mission to create an effective, compassionate, and comprehensive system of HIV prevention and care services for people living with HIV or AIDS in Santa Clara County. Within the first month of working for the Public Health Department, I knew this is where I was supposed to be. My team, the Needle Exchange team, was asked to be part of an outreach event for the unhoused members of our society. We were to conduct syringe services and HIV and Hep C testing. Upon arriving at the site, I saw organizations and services that I had no idea existed in this county. There were buses and trucks and numerous volunteers and county workers. I caught myself looking around, taking everything in, watching the smiles and sincere gratitude of the roughly 50 to 60 unhoused people using these services. Services such as screening and medical care, mobile showers and washing machines for clothes, hot meals and drinks, people providing clothing, hygiene kits, blankets, sleeping bags. Organizations like the Valley Homeless Healthcare Program, they provide care for over 7,000 people every year. the backpack homeless healthcare program, which my team is a part of also. We pack our backpacks up with supplies, medical supplies, syringes, hygiene kits, whatever we can think of, and we go out to the encampments and on foot, hooking it and providing all that those valuable services to them. Dignity on Wheels, they're the ones that go around and provide the venue for washing their clothes and taking showers. And then City Team was the one who provided hot meals. So as I mentioned, I knew I was in the right place. As I continued to watch and admire all the hard work and services being provided, my heart smiled. I was filled with such joy. It was both encouraging and rewarding to see people taking care of people. It was easy to see how the principles of social justice were being implemented. Access and participation were provided by us going to where the people are, literally and figuratively. Those who needed more help than others were provided such, and there was our equity. And basic human rights were second nature to everybody providing services. It was an amazing experience. Not long after that, COVID-19 struck. This is where I saw another huge shining example of social justice taking the forefront when it comes to public health. One of the very first priorities that the public health department had was our unhoused communities. It was realized that their living conditions put them at a higher risk of contracting and or succumbing to the COVID-19 virus. The county quickly implemented a plan to house as many as possible. The county secured hotels, apartments, city buildings to house this vulnerable population. And as soon as testing became available, this community was one of the first ones that was tested. Again, access and participation are vital. So not only were there testing sites throughout the county, we also traveled to the encampments and shelters to provide that testing. And as soon as the vaccines were available, a plan to meet the people wherever they were was created. We visited every encampment and shelter in the county to ensure that we met the immediate needs of our unhoused population and their vaccinations. Equity and human rights are consistently at the forefront of what is done. I'm incredibly proud of the work we have done for this often shunned and discriminated population. With that being said, we've heard all the stories of inequity during COVID. Social justice and equity have far to go and far to reach. It is not enough to simply expect social justice. We must demand it. And to be successful, it requires work, sacrifice, self-reflection, and knowledge. And to accomplish this, it is imperative that we know what to do differently to affect the changes we desire. And this is achieved in discovering new knowledge. And if you recall, I mentioned that the process of producing new knowledge is through research. Research not only grants new tools, processes, and information, the human connections and understandings that are achieved inevitably make you a better person, a better advocate, a better supporter, a better activist, a better human. Individually, we can make small changes. Engaging in partnerships and collaborations with your communities makes those small changes into big changes. And those big changes in turn have huge impacts on people, and those impacts can change society. So in closing, I encourage you to research, explore, experiment, and achieve. Find your passion, your purpose, and what motivates you. What are the changes that you want to see, and how will you make it happen? We all have the power to initiate change. We just need the commitment to embrace our humanity and the conviction to inclusion, diversity, and equity. So that is all I have for y'all today. And if there are questions, we can take them at this time.
Thank you, Marcus, so much. Yes, I'm starting to get questions in for you based on what you just shared with us about both your personal experience growing up in Pennsylvania and also about your journey through the Navy and then through college and then now into your work at the county. One question that just came in is kind of how would you recommend that youth become involved in research? And are there particular kinds of pathways that you would recommend that students take to becoming involved in research?
Yeah, so almost every college and university offers some type of research. And really, like I said, it takes effort. You have to, the information is out there. And unfortunately, research is not as popular as it should be. We can accomplish so much with research. You know, we were able to identify so many things. So college and universities are very happy when people are interested in research. So if you were to contact any of your local universities or colleges, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction and get you involved in some of the research that they're conducting on there. And there's tons out there. I mean, and that's the great thing about research. There are times that you know, as a student, you don't really know the path sometimes. You're trying to figure things out. And research provides you the opportunity to figure that out. You can do a research project and you may be exposed to something that you had no idea that was going to create a feeling for you, you know, a passion or a purpose for you. And it's great. So I encourage you to, just because you may not be interested in a particular field, explore it, check it out, and see if it resonates with you. Because you can always do, you know, you're not, as I said, it's a short-term way, risk-free, you know, to figure out what you like. So try a little bit of everything, you know, get a broad spectrum. And it's going to, as I said, it's going to make you a better person in the end anyway.
Thank you. Another question that came in, you spoke about the importance of relationships and partnerships in research at the beginning of your talk. And I'm wondering, you described some of the other partner agencies that you're collaborating with in the work that you're doing with our unhoused population in the county. But I wonder how you incorporate relationships and partnerships with research work or with practice in public health in the context of your professional life.
Well, I guess, you know, every time that, and especially for me, this is a whole new road for me. My HIV education and prevention has been mostly doing for sexual health. The needle exchange program is new territory. So for me, every time that I go out, it's almost like a research endeavor for me. I'm learning something new all the time, and I ask so many questions. And I have, and the nice thing about research, and I mentioned this in my talk, was you're able to identify biases. There are things that I didn't realize that I felt or carried with me. I guess you would call it implicit bias, you know, that I had that I just didn't realize until, you know, I was faced with it, and then all of a sudden it came out. I'm like, wow, I thought that, you know. And so the research, and especially the research that I did with Dr. Warden, it really opened my eyes up in sharing, the power of sharing, and having those connections with other folks. And with partnerships, you know, as I said, you know, as an individual, you can do a lot. You can do small things, you know, as an individual. And a lot of times those small things are really big. But when you collaborate with other people, especially when you have overlapping interests, you know, most of the partners that we have, they're doing the same work we're doing, or they're working with the same communities that we're working with. So why not combine your powers? And then you end up, you know, we always hear about the whole person concept, but that really embraces the whole person. You know, we're attending to all their needs, not just their medical, not just needle exchange, not just STD testing, but we're trying to get them housing. Do they need housing? Do they need food? Employment services. I mean, there are so many things that the county offers, and you wouldn't never know that unless you collaborate and you have partnerships with other people. So I can't even stress the importance of collaborating and working with other groups of folks, not only for getting new information, but the power that you have doing it together.
Thank you. There was an article in the New York Times, I think it was yesterday, maybe you saw it, about harm reduction approaches. And it was an interview with someone in San Francisco who himself is a recovering addict, who talked about how the approach of delivering these kind of safer drug use kits makes it really difficult to come clean. I don't know if you saw that article, but I wonder what your thoughts are about that, and if there's research to support the kind of holistic care that you're talking about, as opposed to the concern that some people have raised about providing new needles or other kinds of material paraphernalia that support drug use, making it more difficult for people to stop using drugs?
Well, actually, that's a great question. There's a ton of research out there that shows that programs like the needle exchange program that we're running here in the county actually reduces the drug use that our clients have. It actually improves their health overall because so as as I said, we follow the harm reduction model. So we meet our clients where they are. We don't tell them not to do drugs or to do them or whatever. But if they are going to do them, we want them to do it the safest way possible. And they respect that and they appreciate it. You know, we establish a bond with our clients. And then once you establish that bond, then all the other services, like we don't push, methadone or things like that to get them better. If they ask for it, it's something we'll provide, but it's not something it's not a goal. Our main goal as following the harm reduction model is to prevent overdose deaths and to prevent HIV and Hep C. Those are the three main things that we're dealing with this community. And the services that we provide reduce HIV that we'll see in the county. It reduces the Hep C cases that we'll see in the county. And it reduces the amount of overdose. In the last year that we've been providing Noxolone to our clients, we have saved over 400 people have had reversals. That means 400 people have died and came back because of the Narcan that we gave them. And to me, that just, granted, ultimately in the back of my mind, yes, I would like them to get clean and get better and be healthy, but my wants and my needs are not their wants and their needs. And you have to understand that, especially when you're providing, health service and public health. We know, sometimes you just want to shake, but that doesn't work. You can't put onto them how you would feel, how you would react to it. You have to meet them where they are. So as I said, if they ask for help, we help them. If they need housing, we provide it. We don't push any of that on them. And right now, as following the harm reduction model, a lot of people get a kick out of this, but now we are giving away pipes. We're giving away meth pipes. We're giving away crack pipes. We're giving away heroin pipes. We're giving away booty bumping kits. And that's what they're calling. It's a safer way. We believe as a harm reduction model, it's a safer way. If they're going to do the drugs they're going to do, it's a safer way to do it. It reduces overdoses. And especially with booty bumping kids, they're very popular because the drugs that they take, they're able to get almost the degree and immediate effects that they would get injecting it by inserting it into their booty and it being absorbed by the rectum. It's when I first heard about it, like much of you right now, I'm probably like, really, booty bump? What? But it is a harm reduction a technique that works. It works. It saves lives. It sounds funny, but it saves lives. So there's a lot of research out there that shows that these programs work. They work. They get people the help that they need. And if nothing else, even if they do stay on, still inject drugs for many, many years, we are helping them do it safer. We're preventing them from, you don't want HIV on top of that. You don't want Hep C on top of that, so we prevent all this stuff. And overdosing, we prevent that too. We just don't dictate that for them to stop. Always meet them where they are. But that was a great question because we get that a lot.
Well, thank you for taking the time to answer it and answer it so thoroughly. You did mention, the amount of housing that was provided for folks who are homeless during the pandemic in the context of our counties prioritizing the unhoused as a very high risk population for COVID. Now that that population is having good access to vaccination and presumably over the next days, months, weeks, years, the pandemic will become less severe. The rates of infection will go down in our county and hopefully across the world. I'm wondering, is there talk about changing that prioritization around housing, or do you think the county will be able to retain its emphasis on housing people first as a way of protecting them?
I think as long as we're still in the midst of it, that's still an option. Now, I know that we obviously the numbers are decreasing. We went from we had 3 hotels that we were housing, and now we're down to 1. There's just not enough. And it wasn't just the unhoused. We were also putting folks up who had to, say they had a quarantine or they had a possible exposure and they couldn't quarantine in their own home because there were too many folks. Well, the county would step in and say, okay, we'll give you a spot so you can quarantine. So it wasn't just the unhoused community. Of course, 90% of them were the unhoused community, but But yeah, I don't see it going away anytime soon. And it's a catch-22, because you may have noticed around the county, there's a lot of encampments. And you'll notice also that they haven't moved for a very long time. And there's a reason behind that. The county made a decision that moving the encampments, because normally we go in and they do what's called sweeps. They just sweep it up, take everything out, tell everybody you got to go. But they realized that would increase the chances of contracting HIV by having them move. Because it was the same thing we did with the needle exchange program. We tried to, instead of having them come back every week, because we provide service every week, we would give them enough supplies to last them 3 weeks. So that way we would decrease the amount of contact, amount of interaction we have folks. So that was the idea behind not moving the encampments, not sweeping them and leaving them where they are. And then unfortunately what happened, you should start seeing them getting larger and larger and larger. And what's happening now, as I said, the catch-22 is, yeah, we're getting them treated, we're getting them vaccinated, but now the city realizes that and they're seeing it. So now they're starting to do sweeps. They're starting to remove the encampments. So now you're going to see people getting uprooted again. And it makes our job more difficult, because you can imagine trying to attract folks when it comes to, Hep C or HIV or anything like that. It's difficult to locate it. But luckily we have set sites throughout the county, so they know how to find us if that happens.
Thank you so much. We're drawing to a close. I do want to just give one last opportunity if anybody else has any further questions. Otherwise, thank you so much, Marcus, for sharing your time with us today and sharing your words of wisdom for all the students and other attendees here at today's colloquium. We really appreciate you coming back, returning to SJSU to share what you've learned with us. And to tell us about the really amazing work that you are doing in the community as a part of our county's public health department.
Thank you so much.
In honoring everybody's humanity. We really appreciate that.
It's important. It's important.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was an honor and a privilege. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks. I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Akila Carter-Francique.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, another round of applause for Marcus Durr. Again, he's with the County of Santa Clara Public Health Department and serves as a community outreach and health education specialist. I was taking copious notes, I don't know about you, learning all about the work that he does and how he's really taking his undergraduate and graduate studies, his efforts in research, and using that in his day-to-day practice or praxis. So now I want to turn to our next segment. So is going to be some student research breakout sessions. So in this next segment, we will actually host our inaugural breakout session. So students at the undergraduate and master's level cultivated a presentation based on primary and secondary data, a present day question of interest while considering this year's theme, equity in the age of COVID-19.